Morning, everybody. So what I thought I would do for this week's video is, in addition to give a couple of tips, give a tour of the plot in my yard. I have two of them, but the one that many of you probably saw pictures of as I was building it this year. It's 23 by 14, got 6 raised beds with 4 grow bags and a couple of perennials in it. So I will, once we get inside and start looking at the different stuff that I have going, I will give some tips, but this is going to be primarily a tour video. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here is the 23 by 14 area that I fenced in this year. This is what I'm using as my cool season plot for the cool season crops, such as cabbage, which I don't have any of this year, all the cole crops, lettuce, and things of that nature. As you can see, I'll pan around here. It is 10 4x4 by 6 foot posts, a couple of 75-foot rolls of chicken wire, as well as strapping on the top and the bottom. The construction itself, not that bad. The hardest thing, as anybody who's worked with rolled fencing before can probably tell you, the hardest part of it is to get the fencing unrolled so that it stays straight. So let's go on inside and we will see what we've got going. Okay, back up, zoom out a little bit. First bed here in the front, 4 plants on the left are Brussels sprouts, the 6 on the right are kale. The bed in the back you see, that's all broccoli. This entire plot was planted, it was May 25th, probably about a month or so ago. So like I said, Brussels sprouts here and kale, broccoli in the back there. We'll move over to here. Romaine lettuce on the left here, some beets in the center, and spinach over there on the right. Now I like this particular layout here. All 3 of these crops, none of them take up a whole lot of space. You can see here, this bed is 6 by 3. And in here, I got 5 lettuce, we got 7 beets, and we got 9 spinach. So 5, 7, 9, 21 plants here in this small space. And in the back there is cauliflower. We're going to go ahead, we will, later on in the video, we're going to go ahead zoom in on a couple of different crops and take a better, closer look at them. 4 grow bags here, 2 in the front have red potatoes in them. And the 2 in the back, one has watermelon, one has cantaloupe. Both of them, neither one of the melons have come up yet. I only planted them Saturday. They're about 5 to 7 days for the seed to germinate. Both of the varieties of melon are formulated for smaller containers. These are 10-gallon grow bags. There are 5 seeds of each melon in each bag, and I will take out the 2 that don't look the best once all 5 have come up, and we will go from there. Raspberries here, these red raspberries, were gifted to me by my next door neighbor. She has got an extraordinary amount of raspberry canes in her garden right now. And she and I trade plants back and forth all the time, even though it's only been 2 years. I'm going to say all the time anyway, because we've been doing it for a couple of years. Hi, Caroline. Shout out to you. These are just slightly taller than they were when I put them in about 3 weeks ago. My hope is that they're going to fill in the entire corner of the plot here, so I will go ahead and board them in once they do. Rhubarb over here, this crown was planted last year. Rhubarb, another perennial. You do not want to harvest it the first couple of years, just like asparagus. Let it do its thing for a couple of years so it can put all of its energy into feeding the crown for harvest from year 3 afterwards. And here's going to be the first one of the tips here. Let me come in here. You can see right here, this is the start of a rhubarb flower. And if your rhubarb is flowering prematurely, that's perfectly fine. It's just a sign that, it could be a sign that it's not getting enough water, that it's too warm. You can see here, I've kind of kept the leaves and the maple seeds that have fallen, I've kept them down here as mulch to try to keep the soil cooler. It has been extraordinarily hot here the past week or so in southern Massachusetts, a lot hotter than it's supposed to be in late May. We had a couple of days last weekend near 90. But it's either a sign that it's not getting enough water, it's too warm. So what you can actually do, if you come back up here to the flower, I'm just going to take it, I'm just going to pinch it off like that and just throw it away. And it will then go into, put energy into making new stalks and getting the crown stronger for subsequent years. You see, here's a not too bad looking stalk right now for the second year. And we got a couple more over here. And I'm trying to see if we have any new ones down at the bottom. I don't see any, but maybe in the next video. And strawberries in this bed here, obviously another perennial. 6 of these plants were put in last year. 3 of them were put in this year, and it's kind of easy to tell which ones were last year's, at least for us anyway. Both of these varieties are everbearing. There are 2 different types of strawberries. One is called everbearing, meaning it continues to bear fruit all season long. And then the other one is June bearing, which is, you know, it flowers in May, sets its fruit in June, and then that's it for the year. Zoom in down here. Here are some coming out of last year's plant, and we can tell this petal right here, see how it's white? Not that it's gonna matter for you when you plant your berries at home, but that's how we're telling which ones are this year's and which ones are last year's. The plants with the white flowers were last year, and the plants with the pink flowers, different variety, but again it's everbearing, are the ones from this year. There's some more right there. Now, how do you prepare a good strawberry bed? That's a very popular question because strawberries are becoming more and more popular in the home garden as we go along here. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a loose soil. I talked about loose soil in the video a couple of weeks ago when we talked about sowing carrots. Very similar to that. This is the soil in the strawberry bed. It's that garden blend that I was talking about. Very loose, holds moisture well, and you want to make sure that you give it space. Strawberry plants actually propagate themselves by what are called runners. So you can actually, let me take, for example, I don't see, oh, this was a good one here. You can't see the runner, but these 2, the one on the right that I just showed you with the berries and the actual white petal, that was the parent plant. And what it did over the winter, use this stick as a guide. You can't really see it anymore, but that was it right there. See what I'm holding up with the stick? That's a runner. What happens is the plant will actually send a vine or another, or like I said, what's called a runner, out to another area of your plot with a crown on the end of it. That crown will root, and from that you will get a secondary or a child plant, which is what we have here on that one. So, and I would suspect in about 2-3 years, maybe 4, this entire bed will be filled with plants. Now, if you have a bare root plant, what you want to do, I'm just going to do down here as an example. I don't have a plant to show you, but what you want to do is you want to kind of mound your soil up. First you're going to dig a little bit of a hole and I feel some roots here, so I don't want to go down too far. But you'll dig a slight hole, and then you'll mound the hole back in a little bit, and you'll take your crown and you'll put it right on the top, spreading the roots out, and then cover it up and lightly water with the root spread. Very similar to how you would plant an asparagus crown, which next year I hope to be able to give you a video on that, as well, as I'm going to replace the bed that I'm actually sitting on right now that has onions in it that aren't doing too well. I'm going to dig that all out, put in a decent blend, and hopefully put asparagus in next year. Keeping the crown close to the surface will help the runners spread more evenly. Excuse me, not more evenly, I should say more easily. So remember that. Slight hole, mound it up in a little bit in the center, put your crown down with the roots out, lightly cover it, lightly water, and then just wait for Mother Nature to do her thing. So now that we've got that, we've taken a look at everything, we'll come back and take a look at a couple of the crops here that I've got going, specifically the beets. Now everybody thinks, again, like I said with the carrots, everybody thinks that with beets it's a very difficult thing to know how to grow because they grow underground and you can't really see what they're doing. So let's start from the beginning with the seed. These beets here were actually grown from transplant that I got at the nursery. But a beet seed, if you've ever seen a beet seed, it looks like a piece of cork, and it's not actually an individual seed. What it is it's a cluster of seeds. It's an immature fruit that has about 4 or 5 seeds in it. So if you plant a beet seed, you will see 4 or 5 sprouts coming out of it, and what you'll want to do is thin them to the strongest one, and make sure that at no point during the life of that plant, more so with a root crop than an above ground crop, do not let it dry out. It needs as much water as you can possibly get, especially radishes and beets, because that actually is what forms the bulb underneath, is all the excess water that you give it. Now, how do you know when you see, actually before we get into how do you know when the beets are ready, because that's jumping the gun a little bit here. But you can see the more leaves that you have on a particular plant, the bigger the root is going to be, and I'll show you an example of that here in a minute, because we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 leaves on this one right here. And if I scratch away the soil a little bit, actually this one might be too far down to actually be able to see the see the root. It is. But I know that this one in the back here, this one also has 9. There's a 10th one coming up, and I had scratched away at it right before I took the video here. You can see that right there. Is it starting to get about the size right now of about a radish. These probably got another month or 2 to go. I'm going to cover that back up before we actually pull them. Yeah, late June, early July, when I would say we have the beets. Now, it's also important to keep your beets cool during the season too, because the hot weather will cause them to crack underneath and also obviously cause the ground to dry out quicker. So you want to keep them cool. That's why they're planted here in a bed that gets partial shade. Excuse me, in a plot that gets partial shade, to keep them as cool as they can. This one actually here, this might be big. Yeah, this one's a little bit bigger than the one that I showed you before. You can see that in there. Again, hello pillbug. About a month into their life, probably another couple of months before we pull them up. So that's a look at how everything is doing right now. Next week's video, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll show you the warm season bed, warm season plot on the other end of the yard. And for more tips and more videos and a link to the classes that we offer, please be sure to visit our website, www.blackstonevalleyveggegardens.com. Have a great day.